Wayne Slater has been watching George W. Bush and Karl Rove for a long time. He's a reporter for the Dallas Morning News and the author of, it's the name of his book, Bush's Brain. Pat Buchanan, of course, is an MSNBC political analyst. Let me go to Wayne right now. Do you think that Bush can operate without his brain, as you call him?
Sure he can, because there's not much to do. Basically, Karl understands and the president understands. This is the end. All presidents get to the end. They become lame ducks to one degree or another. There really are no more re-election campaigns. There are no more fundamental campaigns. The Republicans are trying to distance themselves from Bush. And ultimately, there are no more initiatives, which is what Karl was involved with. This was the time to go.
Do you think he really was Bush's brain, or is that just a metaphor? I mean, do you really believe that he was almost a brain, a mental transplant that the president used, like trainer wheels, to make big decisions? Or did he advise the president?
I think he advised the president. You know, look, I'm one of these guys who knew George Bush back when he ran for governor and before. I recognize he's not a stupid person, despite what his critics say. What Karl was, this is intellectual brain, this sort of strategic and tactical political brain. He brought to the Bush equation something that Bush didn't have. Bush had a lot that Karl didn't have. Together, they were very formidable. Gosh, they made it to the White House.
You know, Pat Buchanan, I think the Democrats, I can tell you that, and you know this, they think of him as Moby Dick, the great white whale. They believe that he stole the White House from them. He stole the governorship from Ann Richards. He divided the country over Iraq. And every screw-up in this administration is Karl Rove's fault, and everything that was menacing and predatory, he was behind. Is he big? Was he that big?
I think Karl Rove is a very important political figure in that he is responsible for the most successful political career since Ronald Reagan. 2 straight governorships of a great state, the presidency of the United States twice, so he's a tremendous success. Where he failed, Chris, is he talked about a new governing majority for the Republicans. The problem is the Nixon-Reagan majority was that, and that was disintegrating, and he did not stop the disintegration. The president did not stop it. They did lose both houses of Congress, but so too did Bill Clinton. We are just in a new era where neither party is America's party. He couldn't prevent that. But personally, what he did for Bush is a tremendous success.
How big a role did he play in the big decisions, Wayne? In other words, the big decision to go to Iraq, which is the most obviously pivotal decision of our recent American history. Most presidents, I don't think, would have gone to Iraq. He did. Was that Karl's call, or did he just live with it?
No, he lived with it. I think those of us on the inside who've talked to Karl and talked to others around him know that his job was really to market that decision, which I think was pushed on Bush by Cheney, Rumsfeld, other neocons. But look, he was in the middle of the deal and pushing, basically marketing the idea because he understood that it fed a larger theme that really has been a Rove theme. How do you divide and conquer? That's part of his legacy. It's a politics of division. All politics, you put one side on the one side, the other guys, your guys on your side. But Rove mastered this, made this a very efficient effort. And he really raises a question. Do you run a successful politics that's successful in getting you elected, but in so doing, end up with a failure or an inability to govern?
I think that gives too much responsibility to Rove. The President of the United States was converted to neoconservatism between 9/11 and the Axis of Evil speech. He embraced it. He still talks about it today. He's got the zeal of the convert. He's an evangelist for it. I think Rove had to really explain and go along with that program. George Bush is a character in his own right, and I think he himself is responsible for his failures and successes. You take immigration. He's the driving force behind that. Trade policy, Bush is the driving force. Iraq, Iran, Bush, and Cheney are the driving force behind that. I think Rove goes with the program.
How come Rove wasn't marched out of the White House, frog walked, as Joe Wilson said he should have been? How did he escape the judge and the Iran-Contra, not the Iran-Contra, the CIA leak story, even though it's now on the record, the judicial record, that he leaked, helped leak to a couple of reporters?
Well, you know, I was going to say he was involved. You know he was involved. David Schuster made it very clear, and your program has made it very clear his involvement. He wasn't legally culpable, but he wasn't marched out because, I think, in part, there's this loyalty thing between Bush and his closest advisors, especially the guy who knew that George Bush was going to be governor before he did, the guy who was there from the very beginning.
Yeah, but Bush, the president, said that any one of my people involved with leaking this will be taken care of. Is that what he meant by today's ceremony, the bear hug and everything? Was that being taken care of? And I mean, I've never seen a staff aide be signed off on at the presidential helicopter with such majesty. It was almost regal today, like he was knighting the guy. And he said he was going to take care of this bum. Anybody that leaked in the CIA case, well, this is how he took care of him.
And it really tells you the difference. Well, I mean, look, it tells you the difference between Karl Rove, political operative, like any other political operative, and Karl Rove, this instrumental figure within the White House. I think Bush thought at the time, A, you don't look like you cut your losses right after, in the midst of this investigation or at the very end of it. Secondly, I think Bush and Rove felt there were still things to be accomplished, and by and large, that hasn't happened.
But sure, if you save Alberto Gonzales, for heaven's sakes, you're going to save Karl Rove. Before this is over, Chris, he's going to get a Medal of Freedom. You watch. He will get it in January of 2000. No, not
Karl
Roberto.
Rove will.
Karl Rove will. You watch. I mean, Bush's father did it with Rumsfeld and all those guys before they left. You watch.
I mean, Whitaker Chambers is one thing, but this guy, I mean, let me ask you the question. How do you rate a guy's success if he's on such a losing team right now, Pat? The president doesn't have popularity in the country.
Well,
his immigration bill, which you didn't like, went down the drain. His Social Security plan to make it voluntary to create personal accounts went down the drain.
I think
everything he's tried to do except the initial tax cut and
the
war in Iraq.
The Bush second term is shaping up as a very big and possibly historic failure. To some degree, Rove gets the credit or responsibility for that. But his main responsibility is to put George Bush in the governorship twice and to put him in the White House once and then re-elect him. He did that. That's the big test for a political advisor.
My big question, we're going to debate this later, but why should Karl Rove go out and make tens of thousands of dollars per speech, maybe $50K a speech, and tell everybody to answer any question they put to him in these speeches? Because as you know, Pat, and I know, you have to answer the questions when they're paying you, and yet he won't answer any questions on Capitol Hill. A legitimate constitutional body cannot ask him questions, but if you pay up, you can get the information from him.
If Jefferson can defend his office from the FBI, Rove ought to be able to defend his conversations with the president.
Bill Jefferson.
Bill Jefferson, the guy with 90 grand in the freezer.
That's below the belt. Like cold cash.
No, it is. It's separation of powers.
You realize this, Wayne, how quickly he goes right for the below the gut. He goes after Bill Jefferson, who has no supporters out there.
No, but he won the case. He won the case in law, and he should have.
Hey, you know what, Wayne? Get your book out in another edition. I think you still got a story there, by the way, because he'll be out in the campaign trail giving lectures right now, making good money. You could have a complimentary book to hand out.
Chris, he's not only going to be out there in the lectures, he's going to be the #1 advocate, you could say explainer, you could say rehabilitator of the Bush legend. He understands that the legacy of George Bush and Karl Rove depend on what historians say. Rove sees himself as an historian. Look for the Rove book at your newsstand pretty soon.
Okay, it's pretty good when you get people to applaud and give you a $50K besides. Anyway, thank you, or more. Thank you, Wayne Slater. Congratulations on describing Bush's brain before we even knew these guys. Anyway, Pat Buchanan, as always, playing defense in a rough turf.